A century ago, Britain's rail network was the envy of the world.
You could get a train from almost anywhere.
To almost anywhere else.
But many of these lines were considered unprofitable, and in the 1960s, Dr. Beeching was recruited by the government to come up with a plan that would stop the railways from hemorrhaging money. He famously brought the axe down on over 4,000 miles of track and 2,000 stations. Almost overnight, 30% of the network was closed down. 50 years on, I'm going on a journey to discover just a few of those lost lines.
I'm walking the old Ruabon to Barmouth line, which connected the heart of England to the untamed wilderness of Wales, the beauty of Snowdonia.
I'll visit the country's most famous aqueduct in order to
discover what the Romans taught us when it came to building railways.
I'll seek out living history.
I've got a dead body here, he said to me. Good Lord, the chaps had collapsed and died in the train. We had to take him out here. We had him stand in the office over there.
Once I reach the coast,
I'll marvel at one of the oldest and most spectacular viaducts still in use in Britain.
And at the end of it, I look forward to a rather nice seaside town.
I'm in search of one of the great lost railways of Wales. And to get there, I need to cross the Cefn Mawr Viaduct.
And the only way to cross it and reach my starting point is by train. In the 1840s, railway companies started offering low-cost excursions so that working men and their families could travel to parts of the UK they may have never seen before. And trips like this became available to everyone.
The line I'm looking for was one of the first to take passengers from the busy industrial heartland of England deep into Wales with its dramatic scenery.
I'll be walking the Ruabon to Barmouth line, 55 miles of trackbed that winds through the rugged countryside to the beautiful Cardigan Bay. This is the starting point for my journey. In its heyday, this station was a hive of activity. It was a terminus with a goods depot, a marshalling yard and a turntable. But sadly, by 1974, after the wave of beaching cuts, it was reduced to an unstaffed halt.
Here's a photo of it a good few decades ago now. There's a lot missing. There's a whole station building gone from that side. This canopy, no longer here. There's still the original station building, though. Now it's just quiet. The lost railway line I'm looking for splits away from the main line just outside of Ruabon station here, but it's been shut down for 50 years. So whether or not I'll find exactly where it splits, I don't know. I'm game for giving it a shot. The thing about lost railway lines is, for the most part, they're not there anymore. They are lost, so it can be quite tricky to find them. But if you know what you're looking for, there are clues out there. Now, looking at my map, I think, well, this is a bit deceptive because there's water down here, but if you come across with me, it doesn't go anywhere. It stops there in a bit of a kind of mucky puddle. I don't think that is a waterway. I think this is water that's just filled up. I think this is the line. This is definitely the first thing I've come across that says I'm on track. So Barmouth, at the very end of the line, should be about 55 miles away down there. Pretty sure I'm right.
It's hard to imagine walking through this overgrowth, but this was part of the trackbed that leads to a small station called Aqueduct. There's absolutely no trace of it now, though.
Hey. So I've come down and I thought There might be some old clues, I don't know, some piles of old railway ballast or some old sleepers or something, but no, there's nothing down here. When it's gone, especially here. I'm confident elsewhere on the line, there will be some bigger clues.
Taking a slight detour from the old trackbed, I want to see what life was like before the railways by exploring this region's star attraction.
And this is the Pontcysyllte Aqueduct. It's been here for over 200 years. It was built by Thomas Telford, pretty much the grandfather of civil engineering. And it's the longest and tallest navigable aqueduct in the whole of Britain.
I'm meeting Peter Jones and Linda Slater of the Canal and River Trust to find out how the railways impacted on the waterways.
Thank you very much. Have a good look at the Pontcysyllte Aqueduct. We've got the Kevin Male Viaduct just behind us there.
Yes.
And here we are on the Pontcysyllte Aqueduct.
Yes.
How important were the canals around here then before all the railways arrived?
They actually shipped all the cargo around the country into the docks.
So before the railways, the canals were the arteries of industry, weren't
They were the original superhighway.
The superhighways?
Yes.
And they were,
yeah.
I guess.
Well, they were. I mean, before that, we'd got rivers, which were in flood or in drought and no good for navigation.
And wouldn't necessarily take
were
you where you wanted to be.
useless. That's it. So, you know, you couldn't move goods around. And to be fair, we hadn't needed to move large loads. A load of hay off a field was about the biggest we wanted to move in those days. But then, once the Industrial Revolution got going, then we needed heavy transport. The price of coal was halved overnight.
So this canal was shipping what? Mainly coal?
Mainly coal, but bricks and tiles from the many brickyards in the area.
Okay.
Slate and stone from up the valley.
And that was all going to...
Going down into the Midlands
Yeah.
and up north as well.
Going across, all the way across the whole network.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And it was profitable, was it?
Oh yes,
Oh, yeah.
it was going from not being able to move any industry anywhere to be able to take it wherever you liked across the world.
What happened with the canals then when the railways came in and took over that industrial transportation?
Well, it pretty much quite quickly turned into a tourism attraction, you know, with boat trips.
Did it even then?
They did.
So it's always been a hotspot, and of course it's convenient to England. It's on the border.
Yeah.
It's a different country, different language.
And so there was something... Almost something exotic, mystical about coming abroad.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So we're talking here kind of middle of the 19th century?
Yeah, the Victorian era, yes, it's a must.
And people still do it in their, what, thousands?
In their thousands.
Thousands,
Absolute thousands. We see nearly 500,000 visitors a year to come see the aqueduct.
500,000 a year?
Yeah. Now that it's a World Heritage Site, it's just gone, boom.
Goodness me.
Amazing.
It's quite disconcerting. I've been chatting to you there, and then I turn around and look.
Yeah.
It's a drop, isn't it?
Birds flying beneath us.
That's 126 feet down. It's nicknamed the stream in the sky.
Yes.
Just because you do just feel like you're in the middle of, you know, flying across.
Completely. Well, it's beautiful and it's magnificent, and
Yeah.
thank you to Mr. Thomas Telford.
That's it,
Yes.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
I'm about 6 miles into my journey, walking the lost railway line from Ruabon to Barmouth in Wales, and I'm heading to the picturesque town of Llangollen.
Before the advent of the railways, the concept of tourism was very much reserved for the upper classes, the affluent few who could afford vast, elaborate cultural tours around the country by stagecoach at the time. But the railways, they were affordable. And so suddenly, travel became available to the working classes.
Taking a trip across the border to North Wales would have been an entirely new experience for Victorian tourists, with its foreign landscapes, language and culture. Even now, as I follow the lost trackbed, this feels like a hidden, magical place. Esteemed writers such as Shelley, Wordsworth and Byron were all inspired to visit, and later when the railways passed nearby, the tourists followed.
This is Plas Nuid in Llangollen. It is famously the former home of two upper-class women who eloped from Ireland at the end of the 18th century to escape the prospect of arranged marriages against the will of their influential and wealthy families. Lady Eleanor Butler and Miss Sarah Ponsonby became known as the ladies of Llangollen, and the romantic lifestyle that they lived here became a source of intrigue and curiosity to all of those who visited the area. It's quite a dramatic front to a house here. You can't help but be impressed by it in some way. It's not just the house on its own. It's all of this, the gardens, but then beyond as well, that sets this house in context.
While the ladies, with their unconventional romantic relationship, were trying to escape the spotlight, in the years since their deaths, their unique story has enthralled hundreds of thousands of visitors brought here by the railways.
Tourists have continued to flock here, attracted by this really quite seductive, idyllic surroundings and the legacy of romanticism left here. I've just popped back down the hill to join the line again, which really hugs the River Dee here, all the way along the Dee Valley. So as I'm making my way west, I'm just coming up into the centre of Llangollen here.
When this section of the line opened in 1861, it was busy with freight trains carrying coal and slate. A year later, when it opened to passengers, thousands of visitors started to pour into this picturesque town.
The reason all the visitors come here today, the same reason all the Victorian tourists flocked here. It's the peacefulness, the tranquility of these surroundings. And Llangollen's really turned its hand at making money from that. There's loads of hotels and restaurants, ice cream shops here. But one way these modern-day tourists can really experience what the Victorians had is just over here.
Llangollen was, and still is, a popular tourist destination, but the beaching cuts in the 1960s meant this beautiful old station became a victim of the unprofitable line it was on. The last passenger train ran through here in 1965. The track was pulled up and the rest of it just left to rot and ruin. A group of passionate and dedicated volunteers refound this lost line and have lovingly rebuilt 10 miles of it.
Is this a hobby that's become a profession?
Yeah, it's a hobby. It's become a life, that's for sure.
It's become a life?
Yeah, the hobby's very demanding. But it's like having your hobby in your back garden. My back garden's here. This is where I play. This is where I like to be.
I love the fact that you use the word play, because people do, trained railway enthusiasts do have model railways. You've taken that to the next level here.
For me, OK, it's a very serious play. It stems probably from childhood, because my father was the person who was interested in spotting the trains, and he'd shown me all this at a very early age.
Do you have a love for the railway as well now?
Yes, it was my second date with my husband was a footplate ride in December on a Santa special, and he said to me, if you don't like this, then we're not going to go any further. And I was on a footplate in the freezing cold weather in December with people I didn't know and a man I'd met once.
But look at you, still here, so you must have enjoyed it.
And I did, I loved it. So it's a very special experience going on the footplate, I've got to say.
Do you see yourself as a kind of custodian in this period to then hopefully see this railway have a long and healthy future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, both my wife and I are on the board of the railway. I'm particularly interested in heritage. I'm the director for the heritage of the railway, so I'm keen on making sure we preserve all the original elements, like the old clocks and the lamps and things that have stemmed from the old period.
But it's those things that when people come in here, you see their faces light up.
Yeah.
When they come and they see the station like this.
It's got to be a working museum, somewhere that they can come into, a bit like a television set in a way, but real.
Yeah.
A real one that goes on day after day, just the way it would have done in the old days. serving a purpose and letting people transport themselves from one end of the valley to the other.
I'm very much looking forward to my journey along the route here.
Railway enthusiasts Quentin and Liz McGuinness have been spearheading this monumental task. Quentin and Liz have breathed new life into this lost railway. People come from all around the world to get a taste of this great British age of steam. And now, the moment I've been waiting for, a chance to enjoy the line the same way the Victorian tourists would have done.
Here we go. That sounds ominous. Tunnels. And into the Wild West. The scenery out here just keeps surprising you. And it's beautiful.
50 years on since its closure, this line is now busy and profitable again. I know Quentin and Liz would love to extend it further and claw back some more of its history, but the land it would need to pass through is now privately owned, and it would cost millions. For now, I'm happy to sit back and enjoy this beautifully restored 10-mile stretch that seems to get more and more remote the further down the line we go.
This is very obviously the end of the line as far as the Llangollen Heritage Railway folk are concerned. So I'm back on foot. It doesn't take too much now to figure out where the line continues. It's straight along. It's all here to see.
I'm about a third of the way into my journey now and heading west towards Lake Bala. Although I thought I was following the line, I'm beginning to wonder if I've taken a wrong turn.
I've had to check my map a couple of times along here to make sure that I am still following the old railway line because, well, I'm in people's gardens here. So it does feel a bit odd. It feels like I shouldn't be here, but this is definitely the old route of the line, and this is actually a public right-of-way. So as long as I've got the River Dee on my right-hand side here, I know I'm following the line. This is the first bit of kind of hidden clue along this railway I've come across, that this was the railway. Because I keep wanting to remind myself, look, this little stone wall built in here, just keeping back the earth from where the tracks would have gone along here. In fact, actually, you see a lot, but there's loads along here. Look at this. You know, this isn't natural. I mean, it's all covered in moss now because you haven't got trains rolling through here every day. These stones haven't seen trains through here for decades. Rolling stone gathers no moss. Well, these are covered in moss because there's been no rolling stock. You've got all this old railway ballast under me here as well that this path's made out of. You know, that was keeping the track in place. It's those little clues.
I'm stepping out of the wilderness into what used to be the old Bala Junction, and believe it or not, it's another section of restored track. Perhaps this railway's not so lost after all. I'm actually quite happy I can give my legs a bit of a rest as I catch a ride and head a few miles up to Llangollen station. The reopening of 2 heritage lines on this old route is testament to the area's continued popularity as a tourist attraction, and that's no surprise with the beauty of its lakeside scenery. Unlike the full-size Llangollen line, this is a narrow-gauge track, meaning smaller locomotives and carriages. It almost feels like a model railway. I'm following the lost railway line from Ruabon to Barmouth. I'm about halfway into my journey and I've hitched a ride on this restored heritage line to take me to Llangollen station, which was once a busy stop for hundreds of children. At the beginning of the 20th century, the future looked bleak for the Welsh language. Speaking English seemed to dominate every aspect of life outside the home. So places like the Llangollen Activity Centre were set up all over Wales to protect its culture and traditions. By 1953, children were being sent on the railways to this remote lakeside station, where they'd board a boat to take them across to the centre. I'm here to meet Llynnos Jones-Williams to find out why these centres were so crucial.
Croeso I Llangollen.
I'm sorry, I don't fully understand everything there.
No, that's fine.
Will you teach you some Welsh?
I will indeed.
Good.
Shall we do it in the canoe?
Let's do it in the canoe, yeah, thank you.
It's the best way to learn a new language.
How do you say canoe in Welsh?
A canoe.
It's pretty calm out today, isn't it?
Well, I'm glad, actually. We're quite lucky in Llangollen, because Llangollen we've got the bay, which is quite sheltered.
Let's get out and have a look.
Okay.
Would the kids arriving here at Llangollen when it first opened then, would they have been arrived by rail?
Yes, the first camp was held in Llangollen in 1950. So the first residents would have arrived from all around Wales and they would have travelled up by train. So imagine the excitement of being, 12, 13, and you would have travelled for hours from Swansea or Cardiff or Haverfordwest or whatever.
So tell me about the Llangollen Centre then.
Llangollen is run by an organisation called the Urdd Gobaith Cymru, and that was set up in 1922 because Welsh needed to be preserved, basically. There was a threat of it dying out altogether. At the time, all education was through the medium of English, and it was only a few decades earlier that the system of the Welsh Not had been in place.
What's the Welsh Not? What's the Welsh Not?
Well, the Welsh Not was a fairly cruel system that children in Wales were punished for speaking in Welsh. Say, for example, if a teacher heard one of the children speaking Welsh within the school grounds, then they would have to wear a plaque, like a wooden plaque with the letters WN that stood for Welsh Not. And then if another child was caught, this plaque would be passed from child to child, and whoever had the plaque at the end of the day would get caned 6 times. So basically they were trying to kind of punish the Welsh language out to them,
Oh my word. So it was through force?
Yeah.
The arrival of the railways wasn't always positive. As they provided easier access for English-speaking tourists, they may well have played a part in the declining use of the Welsh language.
Back on the heritage line here, finishing off my journey to the end of Lake Bala. So I've got a good idea of what it was like to ride the trains along here. I'm about to meet a chap now who can tell me what it was like working on the old Ruabon to Barmouth line, because he's worked every single station when it was running.
One of the most crucial jobs on the railways fell to a dedicated group of men whose love for the job knew no bounds: the signalmen. And after 50 years on the job, I'm betting John Roberts will have some stories to tell.
Well, look at it, it's beautiful.
Similar to what it was when it was running on British Rail and Great Western.
Is it? Is
Yeah.
this is similar? Because this has been restored since
very much so. There's very few differences. Yeah, the frame is exactly the same. The instruments are exactly the same.
all these levers here. So this is your
exactly the
changing
same,
points
yeah.
here, is it?
Exactly the same as when I started here in 1947.
1947. That's when. And you started here.
Yeah, as a junior porter in 1947. I was 15 years of age, and the wages I was earning at that time was short of £2, 2 shillings short of £2, £1.90. If you work that out, how much an hour? Just 4pence an hour, less than that.
I thought you were going to say per day.
No, for a week.
For the week.
Yeah, £1.90 a week.
It's a very active job, isn't it? It's not just signalman. You know you're called into action in all different ways.
Action, yeah. We were called GPs, general purpose. And we
That's a good name for it.
Yeah, it was, yeah. One morning, the guard called me over. "John, come here," he said. And he said to me, "I've got a dead body here," he said to me. Good Lord, the chaps had collapsed and died in the train. We had to take him out here. We had him stand in the office over there for all day.
That's not in the job description.
It's not in the Job Description Act. No, it wasn't. No. Yeah.
When the old Ruabon to Barmouth line closed, how did it affect the community?
Well, it hardly affected them, did it, you know?
Really?
It maybe it affected local merchants for a while, as far as the passenger people went along. Buses were provided, adequate bus service was provided.
What about you? How did it affect you?
How did it affect me?
Yeah.
Well, as I say, I had to move, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to pack it in there around this area and go back to Ruabon and Shrewsbury to work.
I love characters like John. They're the heartbeat that keeps the history of the lost railways alive.
Thank you so much indeed. Really, really nice to meet you.
I'm now heading along the old track to Dolgelley in Snowdonia, which is a 9-mile hike into the rugged countryside. Signs of the old railway are few and far between, but every now and then you stumble across an obvious reminder.
Now, I wondered what I might come across when I got to here. So this, there's really not much of it left here now, but this is Drewsy Nant Station. You can see, look, we've got platforms on either side here. There was never much here in the first place. I mean, look around. There's no houses. There never were any real houses around here. There's no industry. There's not really any buildings at all. I think I can just make out some remains up there. Which begs the question, what on earth would you need a station for in the middle of nowhere? I guess it's almost like a local bus stop where you might have picked up the occasional passenger who was, I don't know, maybe went for a walk and decided to get the train back. When you see just how remote this station is, or was, you can start to understand that this line wasn't always that economically viable, especially once cars and trucks arrived as well.
This wilderness would have felt extremely alien to 19th century tourists. It's no wonder this part of deepest, darkest Wales is often referred to as the Wild West.
The area just off the line in this direction here was called Mawddwy. And it became infamous in the 16th century because of a band of red-headed thieves who were nicknamed the Red Bandits. I mean, they were effectively highwaymen, terrorising locals and people passing through. And the reason they could get away with such lawless behaviour for so long was just because of how remote it is out here. There are very few towns or villages between Bala and Dolgelley. I mean, this pretty much was the Welsh Wild West.
Fortunately, 200 years later, when the railways did arrive, they took the fear out of travelling by offering a secure, safer passage, turning this intimidating landscape into a leisurely sightseeing journey. I've now arrived in the market town of Dolgelley. There's no trace of the original station that served this town. It was demolished in the 70s. But in its heyday, the railway attracted hundreds of paying tourists. And the locals were eager to demonstrate a different culture, which in turn encouraged the economy to thrive.
Towards the end of the 18th century, it was noted by tourists visiting the area that many of the women were still wearing costume from a good 50 or 60 years earlier, if not more. In particular, the large red tweed coats and mannish black hats. By the 1830s, this look had become recognised as Welsh national costume. And a lot of that was due to the fact that Welsh gentry at the time decided there was a need for more national identity. Almost a manufactured identity to be used on souvenirs and on postcards to satisfy visiting tourists. And it's an identity that's still strong today.
It It wasn't just the sight of these unusually dressed women that surprised the early tourists here. They may have been taken back by the unlikely Welsh sounds too. The triple harp was also adopted as a symbol of Wales. I've come to meet Maya Evans.
That's lovely. This is it then. This is a triple harp.
Which is the Welsh instrument.
Yeah.
There would have been a harper in most pubs. And people would dance and they would, you know, do clock dancing and that type of thing as well, you know.
Oh, lovely.
But because it was associated with pubs and so on, it became the instrument of devils.
Did it?
You know, we think of harps being music of angels.
We do.
A lot of the religious people in Wales during the 19th century, they wanted them burnt in Bala, for example.
Goodness me.
Because it was creating these urges in people in the pubs to go dancing.
It was having a detrimental influence to society.
Yes, terrible. It's terrible, it was. And people maybe getting to hear about this exotic place in the West and coming on holiday with the trains and...
To come and experience some of that exotic...
Exoticness.
So then it is exotic, you know, it is foreign, you know? Yeah. I would love it if you could play me a tune.
I'll play you a tune called the Belle Isle March. If I remember it now.
Leaving Dolgelley behind, it's easy to find your way back onto the old railway line route because you just head towards the river. This is the River Maldach, and unsurprisingly, this has now become the Maldach Trail. I think what I find quite interesting is how the modern roads tend to follow the same route as the old railway line. And the old railway line, for almost the entire length of this particular line, follow the route of the water. The water is the path of least resistance through all these valleys and hills. And now it takes me up to Penmine Pool on my way to Barmouth.
I'm 3/4 of the way along this lost railway line between Ruabon and Barmouth on the Welsh coast. I'm walking the old track, which is now the Maldach Trail, and I'm approaching Penmine Pool station. There's not much left of it, but it's not too difficult to work out where the platform used to exist.
That's it, that's perfect. So you've got the bridge here, I mean, that's just off, and all these hills are exactly the same, they've not changed. And yes, there's the signal box there. That's hidden behind here, but I'm stood in the middle of a car park now. If I take myself back to the time of this photo, I'd have had a whacking great big steam engine coming right at me. Here, look. I reckon this is Penmine Pool station here. It looks like the back of a station coming onto where the platforms would have been here. I'm pretty sure that is.
Afternoon.
How are we doing?
Good, thanks you.
What do you recommend here? Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Draig.
Draigor. What's
Golden
that?
Dragon.
Golden Dragon. I'll have a pint of Golden Dragon, please.
Yeah.
Lovely.
1 second.
Is it that building just next door? Is that the old station here?
It is right at the bottom end. The two-storey one used to be accommodation. The middle was the ticket office stroke parcel office, lost property, and this end was the waiting room.
Not much sign of it out here now. It's not
much. We
railway
keep
traffic you
waiting,
get
but
now.
we don't hear anything now.
No more steam trains coming past your window.
The signal's still there, but yeah, it would have been great. It would have been much nicer with the railway, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to go and enjoy this. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
Good health.
Cheers. Thank you.
Even though this line was closed 53 years ago, some of the old structures have been put to good use. Rhys Gwynn works for the National Parks and has been responsible for repurposing this old signal box for nature lovers.
Rhys.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Okay, pleased to meet you. Welcome to the signal box.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's not much that would tell you it's a signal box now, is it? I mean, from the outside, it looks like a signal box. When you come in, this is very different.
A little bit different to the way it was.
This is very, very different.
It's still in the colours of the Great Western Railway on the outside.
Yeah.
But apart from that, apart from this signal box, there's not an awful lot left.
Why was the decision taken to repurpose it as you have?
It was empty for a while, so I decided to basically offload all the skulls and bits and bobs of animals that I had at home. I thought, I'll create an exhibition here.
I mean, it is a fantastic route, and I mean, the view that you've got out here is just spectacular. Would there be any particular effect on the nature here because of the railway that used to be here?
With the old steam trains, so much vacuum behind the train as it whizzes along that it draws in seed behind it. So often you get a progression of a plant species down the line following the train. I suppose the other aspect is that although it looks very wooded now, there weren't any trees at all. But now it's a bit of a haven for wildlife.
Is this area of particular interest to bird watchers and naturalists?
Well, it does draw people in. So the people we get in here, they're either bird enthusiasts or naturalists, or they're railway enthusiasts very often as well. Because we had a lot of people coming in who remembered the trains. In fact, one of our ex-seasonal wardens remembered coming here as a child to have his hair cut by the signalman in here.
What? Whilst it was operating as a railway, this was a operating signal box?
Yeah.
Come and get his hair cut.
Come and get his hair cut, as things were done in those days.
I love that.
All over the country, there are many colourful stories relating to signal boxes just like this one. In 1948, there were over 10,000 of them, but sadly today, just under 500 are left. My journey from Ruabon to Barmouth is nearing an end. I'm rejoining the Maldach Trail for the last few miles to the coast.
Here at Arthog, what's now a really quiet stretch of the estuary was once a hive of activity. Back in the late 1800s, a mini gold rush here saw around 500 men at its peak employed to search for this precious metal. And they did a pretty good job too. In today's money, an estimated £60 million worth of gold was mined here. Because of its scarcity and difficulty of extraction, it's still thought of as one of the most sought-after golds in the world.
Now, finally, after 55 miles by canal, canoe, on foot, and on two glorious heritage railway lines, I can feel the landscape opening up as I approach the west coast of Wales.
It's the end of the line. All I need to do now is head across the estuary north into Barmouth itself. And the reason I can do that is because of this. The Barmouth Bridge.
At just under 700 metres long, this remarkable structure is a masterpiece of engineering. It survived 150 years of the sea lashing at its feet, 2 world wars, a stray naval mine, and an attack of marine woodworm. And it's still in use today, taking visitors right into the middle of town, just as it did over 100 years ago.
What I really love about this bridge is that it's almost entirely made out of timber. These handrails are made out of timber, this walkway is timber. Look here, even the beams that the rails themselves are bolted down to are all made out of timber. Now, this is the longest timber bridge in Wales, and it's one of the oldest that's still in use in Britain. I'm quite excited to be coming across it. But I'm also excited to be here because I'm almost at the seaside. I reckon the excitement I've got here now is only a fraction of the excitement that some of those working class Victorian families making their way over here from England might have been feeling as they came across this bridge, possibly about to experience the seaside for the very first time.
Barmouth grew up around its shipbuilding and fishing industries, but since the arrival of the railways, guest houses and hotels sprung up everywhere to cater for the thousands of visitors that came from far and wide. It's easy to see why early Victorian tourists were attracted to this place, but I wonder who they were. To find out more, I've come to speak to Janet Griffith here at the Sailors Institute.
Barmouth was well known for tourism, and recently I heard that Barmouth was known not for bed and breakfast, but for people actually coming and renting places even then. And the lady of the house would cook the food for them. And in a 1911 census, there was 130 ladies' boarding houses that were registered.
So they might come on long holidays?
Oh, yes, they absolutely came on long holidays. A lot would come for 4 weeks. They would come as a family. The husband would then go back by rail for work, and then come back at weekends. And that's how they used the train an awful lot. And, of course, they used to put on special trains as well, from the Midlands especially. Unfortunately, Mr. Beeching is the one who cut that.
Sadly.
I used to use that railway.
Did you?
Yes, because I lived in Birmingham, and my parents lived here.
I was wondering if you could help me understand where the majority of those tourists might have been coming from.
Yes, I've got this photocopy of all the boarding houses that were in the area at the time. There's some more. All these people on this date were visiting Barmouth. About 40% of the people who came here as visitors were from the Midlands, but there was an equal number of 40% that came from the northwest, which was Liverpool and Manchester.
80% were from the Midlands and northwest, so
yes,
I mean, in a way, fairly local, as we might see it today. Local. Back then, not at all local.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to go and well, experience what a lot of these guys came here for. I'm going to head to the beach, finish off my journey.
Seeing the effect the railways had on the people and communities here has been a journey of discovery for me. Despite the beaching cuts of the 1960s and the closure of this line, there's still a yearning for the glorious age of steam. What confirms this for me is that out of the 189 stations in Wales that were closed, 32 have since reopened.
For centuries, tourists and holidaymakers have been making their way through North Wales here to Barmouth, drawn by the allure of the dramatic mountainous landscapes inland and the vast, expansive beaches here on the coast. But it was the railways coming here that opened up all of this to all people, making it an affordable journey. Without the railways, I doubt that Barmouth nor the scenic route here from Ruabon would ever have become the hotbed for tourism that it still is today.